Good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Heather Denniston, and with me today is Dr. Mindy Pelz, who I am super excited to have on the show. Mindy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. This is literally one of my favorite topics.
Which is fantastic. But yeah, and our topic today is fasting for women over 40. And Mindy is an absolute expert. I am a little baby when it comes to fasting knowledge and expertise. So we are going to leave all of the, the details of this to her. I have some great questions that I've wanted to know, that my viewers have wanted to know. And so we're going to get into it. But first, I always like to tell a little backstory if there is one. Mindy and I actually went to school together, as she was ahead of me in chiropractic school. And we were just talking before the show that she and I literally have not spoken to each other probably in about 23 years.
Yeah,
and so it's so nice to get on and reconnect. But I have been watching Mindy. If you have not seen Mindy's YouTube channel, you need to go over there. I don't even care if you stop watching. Go to YouTube right now. Subscribe to her channel. Is it Mindy Pelz?
Yeah, Dr. Mindy Pelz.
Mindy Pelz. It's a phenomenal. She's got 90,000 subscribers, some crazy amount, and it's because she puts out incredible content. So do go and check that out. But Mindy, tell me a little bit about your journey since you've graduated chiropractic school. What has been sort of your path to where you are now?
Oh my gosh. Okay, you want the short version of that. So, I think I came into nutrition and detox and fasting when I started seeing, and this sounds horrible, but I just am going to be transparent. When I started to see that the chiropractic adjustment wasn't having the same effect on people. And this is the way, and this is not, I'm still a chiropractor. I still practice chiropractic, but when you and I graduated, we used to be able to adjust people and boom, like 1-2 adjustments, everything would go away. It was like the miracle cure. And in the last 20 years, so much has changed in the toxins in our food. So much has changed in our environment. And it's always that 1 or 2 patient that like keeps you up at night. And you're like, why is the adjustment not healing? What is innate intelligence doing? Why is it not letting go of that symptom? And honestly, that's where I discovered fasting. And how do I bring in other principles to promote healing that is in alignment with the principle of chiropractic?
Yeah, which is so important to us from a philosophical standpoint. As chiropractic is a lifestyle, not a profession, and we want to, whatever else we bring in to how we practice personally needs to be in alignment with that. And so I love that you commented on that. So you are practicing in Silicon Valley. You have a massive practice there. You also do remote coaching and counseling on these subjects, and we're going to get into more detail about that. You also have a Resetters group, which is a free Facebook group people can get into. And then we have a Reset Academy, which is your much more like high touch, more in detail program to teach people all of the different types of fasting. Because guess what, guys, there's not just one kind of fasting.
Yeah. It's not like you just avoid food and, there's a bit of an art to it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, and you have to find what works for you. So we're really focusing on fasting for women over 40. So can we start by talking about the types of fasting? Tell me what the different options are.
Yeah. So, okay, I'll tell you in the progression that I would recommend people start. I think the first beginner fast is intermittent fasting. Like that's 13 to 15 hours. This is where everybody kind of started to get excited about fasting. We know when you intermittent fast that you improve growth hormone. Growth hormone will burn fat, and you don't make as much growth hormone after 30. So as we get older, one of the reasons we hold on to fat is because we're not making enough growth hormone. So intermittent fasting will help with growth hormone production.
Okay.
That's I tell people start there, get used to that. And the most common question is, do you do that every day? And excuse me, my voice is going on me today. And the answer is yes, you do it every day. So you start there, and then it becomes a lifestyle. You just you skipping breakfast, and it's tough in the beginning. You get used to it. And then you move to the next fast, which is what I call autophagy fasting. Okay. And autophagy fasting is where you're going 17 hours and beyond. Okay. And what's so pivotal about autophagy is where our cells will start to detox themselves. So if you're looking for better mental clarity, if you're looking for a self detox, autophagy is where you really want to go. Okay. So then you move to 17 hours. And then I tell people you can move to 24 hours. These are the Jason Fung. I don't know if you followed Jason Fung's work. Yeah, Jason Fung put out a book called The Obesity Code. Highly recommend it. And he talked about how if you want to lose weight, you have to stop putting sugar into your body. And then you've got to fast to go access the sugar that you stored years ago. So when you bring your blood sugar down at about 24 hours, the body goes, we're not getting any more blood sugar here. We're not getting any more glucose. Let me go find where I stored it years ago. And it'll make a switch and have you become more fat adapted. So that's a lot. We call those the 1 meal a day people, where they're just eating dinner or they just eat lunch and they fast the rest of the time.
Okay.
So those are kind of the 3 that people start with. But then there's 3-day water fast. There's fast mimicking. That's where it gets really tricky.
Yeah. No, you said the words fat adapted. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So there's 2 ways that our body will burn energy. One is from sugar and one is from fat. So when we take sugar out of the equation and we start to fast, the body is forced to become fat adapted. Okay. So it will find the fat in your body and it'll burn that for energy.
Okay.
So when people start to fast, what they tell me, what I see is they're like, it's like a coat you take off. All of a sudden just this layer of fat comes off because the body is now fat adapted. Your hunger goes down, your mental clarity goes up. Like you just become more tuned to going without food, and your body is burning fuel from fat.
Now, one of the, this is just a little side note, one of the issues I've seen with people that I've been talking to about fasting and ketosis and keto and all of that is that women over 40 have a harder time getting into that ketotic state to get into fat adaptation. Can you just talk a little bit about that for this age group and how do we get into that sort of fat adapted state a little more easily maybe?
Yeah. So there's really 2 ways. Is that one, when we hit our 40s, especially for women, our hormones are like all over the place. And so that fluctuation of hormones up and down starts to dump toxins that have been stored in our bones, stored in our muscles, stored in our tissues. It dumps it into our bloodstream and it'll go into the brain, affect the hypothalamus. It'll go into fat stores. So your body has to put those toxins somewhere. This toxic load issue starts to make it difficult for people to get into ketosis. So I find if you're struggling, it's just your body's just revealing to you that you have a neurotoxic issue. You have an increase in toxins that need to be addressed. The second issue is this is where variation is key. So you can go watch, I did a video on keto diet variation.
Okay.
It's not as simple as just going and fasting. You want to do an intermittent fast one day. Maybe the next day you do a 24-hour fast. Maybe the next day you don't fast. Then maybe the next day you do an autophagy fasting. So we actually came up with a 15-day metabolic reset for women that we take them through in 15 days. I take them through 7 days, the 7 different types of fasting.
Oh, wow.
And it's like every 2 days, they're doing something different and people just start to drop weight. So it's the variation. You got to it's like shaking up the body a little bit.
Yeah.
You got to kind of wake it up, wake innate intelligence up.
Yes.
And so it's either a toxic load issue or it's a variation issue.
Okay. That is so helpful. So you talked about brain clarity, energy, weight loss. These are all things. And weight loss is a big thing. But even if you don't need or want to lose weight, Dr. Mindy, why do I want to fast?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, as we age, especially in this day and age, memory loss, mental clarity, our energy, gut problems. You give me any problem that a 40-year-old goes through, and I can show you a fasting solution to it. Wow. So as we're aging, I feel like, and I would say this for my own self. I don't know if you've experienced this, but your toxic load just reveals itself a little more to you, even if you're taking amazing care of yourself.
Yes.
So you need more tools. What worked for you in 30 doesn't always work for you in 40 and 50. So you got to have some new tools. And, one of the most common things I get from people is, well, what if I don't want to lose too much weight? So, well, that's fine. Then you fast. And then when you eat, you really eat. So you could, maybe you're not counting macros. Then you fast the next day and then you eat. Yeah. But fasting will create neurogenesis in the brain so that your brain starts thinking better. It increases BDNF, which is fertilizer for the brain. So most people start to go, oh my God, like the brain power I'm getting with fasting is so tremendous. I never want to eat again. Yeah. And then I used to get that 3 o'clock dip in the afternoon. Yeah, I don't get that anymore. Yeah. I'm like more energetic at 8 o'clock at night than I am at 8 in the morning. So people go into it for the energy. They go into it for the mental clarity. I just had a new patient this morning that we were talking about. She had a frozen shoulder and she started fasting and she started getting mobility back of her shoulder. So
and that would be just because of the inflammation cleaning up and just the body righting itself. Because some people are like, oh, how could that be? And but if you understand sort of the physiologic fallout that happens when you allow your body to be free of food for a period of time, then it makes total sense. So that's great.
Yeah, it's shown that it brings down CRP, it brings down ESR rates. Like you can see inflammation markers go down.
Yeah.
So
for those of you who are like, what's that? Those are just blood markers that say you're in inflammation. If they're high, that's a problem. And so we want those nice and low. And so I love that you said that fasting can actually bring down data that can be pulled from your blood, and it can be shown very clearly that is true.
Super cool.
Yeah, I'm an autoimmune sufferer. I have a chronic inflammation. I have definitely found, and I like I said, I'm a baby. I'm just doing intermittent fasting right now, and I'm working my way up. But even that has been super helpful, and so it's been great. Let me ask this one first. Should you time your fasts around menstrual cycle? What if you don't have a cycle? Talk a little bit about that for me.
Okay, so this is the downside of fasting, and I think is a really good conversation to have. So if you do too much fasting, you can start to tank your estrogen and your progesterone levels. Okay. And you can even tank testosterone. These are the sex hormones. Like progesterone makes us feel calm. Estrogen affects our skin and our hair and lubricates the joints. And testosterone gives us motivation to work out and gives us our libido. Okay. So what I've been teaching women is that if you have a cycle, there are 2 times in your cycle that you do not want to fast. You don't want to do long fasts. You don't want to do keto. And those are around day 12 when estrogen spikes. Okay. And around day 21, from day 21 to till you bleed, those are the big markers when you're really needing progesterone and estrogen. Okay. So a lot of people get into fasting and then they lose weight. Their mental clarity is great, but they tank their hormones. Their hair falls out. They start getting more wrinkly. They get more anxious. And those are signs that they're just fasting too much and they didn't pay attention to those 2 times.
And that's true even for intermittent fasting. So you would recommend during those times, not even a 14-hour fast.
Yeah, intermittent's not as bad, but the longer
the longer fast.
Yeah,
okay, that's what I was wondering. That makes sense.
And you definitely wouldn't do a block fast. And if you're combining, like a block fast is like 3 to 5 days, you definitely wouldn't do that the week before your cycle. Okay. Like A, it would be really difficult. You'll find you're more hungry. And B, it'll tank your hormones. So, and then a lot of people combine fasting with keto. So to make estrogen and progesterone, we need carbs. We need beans. We need squashes, potatoes. We need citrus fruits, even some tropical fruits, which keto people are never going to eat those. Yeah. So what I've been trying to teach women is that, especially perimenopause women, is your estrogen and progesterone is already coming down. So be smart about these longer fasts. Be smart about what you're eating at day 21 and day 12.
Okay, that's great. That's really helpful, actually,
Yeah.
because I know a lot of women are like beating themselves up because that week before their period, they're like, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
so hungry. I want to eat everything." And it's like,
Yeah.
then do.
Right. Exactly. Your body is saying, I need progesterone.
Yeah,
Progesterone is what allows the uterine lining to bleed. So
yeah,
you need progesterone to have a cycle.
yeah.
So if you don't, we see it in my clinic all the time. We run a Dutch test on women and it looks at all their hormones. And the women that have been fasting, they end up, they look postmenopausal, even though they're still having a sporadic cycle because they just tank their hormones.
So let me sum that up, because I want to make sure we're not don't hear what we are not saying, which is this. Oh, that's too confusing, so I'm just not going to fast. The benefits of fasting are so astronomical, and more science is coming out. In fact, the last 2 Nobel Peace Prizes had to do with circadian rhythm and fasting. Yeah. And so you absolutely should be implementing this if it feels right to you. But also, like Dr. Mindy is saying, let's do it in a smart and very intentional way. And I love how you said, fluctuate with what your body's doing, with what your cycle is telling you.
Yeah. And the easiest way is intermittent fasting works all the time. So you don't really have to work with your cycle. But when you eat, let's just say the week before your period, make sure if you feel like carb loading, which most of us do, you should be carb loading, but not bad carbs.
Right.
You should be carb loading on things that make progesterone, like what I mentioned.
Yeah.
So, and then if you want to dive into fasting more, you're going to need to think about when estrogen spikes, and that's on day 12. So, and then it's, I actually laugh because here I am, like perimenopause, menopause, and I'm tracking my cycle now for the first time.
Yeah, I know. I do too, very, very closely. And I'm the same. I'm perimenopausal, and it's fascinating to kind of see the subtle shifts and changes and how that goes. And the more aware we are of that, I think the better we can start to to use this intermittent fasting and different kinds of fasting for further benefit. And the longevity benefits of fasting are just
amazing,
massive. Yeah.
So I'm actually starting a whole series on YouTube on how to reset your age with fasting. So there's a new study that came out this year that showed that somewhere between 34 and 58 hours of a water fast, that you go from, and sounds really technical, but your body goes through a process where it starts to hit this fancy term called gluconeogenesis. And when you hit gluconeogenesis, there are metabolites that get secreted that start to improve something. Hang in there with me. Start to improve the Krebs cycle. And the Krebs cycle is what gives us energy. It's what secretes ATP so that we can start healing at a deeper rate. Yeah. So you start going into a time as you age where your healing capabilities are less. But if you start to practice these longer fasts, you can upregulate your stem cells that repair different musculoskeletal areas.
Wow.
You can improve these metabolites that will start to give you more energy and improve healing. You can improve, it upregulates antioxidants, like flipping every marker for aging gets upregulated. So it's such a smart thing to learn how to do as if you want to slow down the effects of aging.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. What if because I in fact just had a patient earlier today who was just saying, "Oh, I've just started and I get so hungry right before bed." So what is some advice you give people who are starting, who are still super like insulin focused, and they're getting those nasty hungry pains, and they're like, they have that mental connection to food that they're like, I can't, panic if I'm not allowed to eat. What are some little tips that you give when someone's starting out with longer fasts?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is, if you're going to go to fasting, make sure you're upping your good fat. So you got to stabilize your blood sugar. So if you go from a high carb diet and then all of a sudden you start to implement intermittent fasting, it's going to be a little hard. So you want to up your good fat. You want to make sure you're eating the avocados and raw nut butters and coconut oil, MCT oil, all those good fats that have been, we've been talking about for the last couple of years. So mega dose on fats, then start to bring your carb load down. So if you do those two things before you even fast, you're going to stabilize your blood sugar. So it's going to make fasting easier. The, the second thing is that when you first lean into this, don't try to go 15 hours. Just push your breakfast back an hour and see how you do. Now, and this is what I find so amazing about innate intelligence is your body figures it out. So you push it back an hour and you're like, you're a little grumpy. You're like, I used to having breakfast at 8 and now it's at 9. It's okay if you're grumpy for an hour because you're letting innate intelligence figure out that you're going to stabilize blood sugar and you're going to start to train it to be fat adapted. Yeah. And once that hour becomes easy, now try 2 hours and then try 3. And before you know it, I swear it's just like becomes, I can take the most hangry person on the planet and I can get them fat adapted pretty quickly. It's just a stepping process. You don't just jump into like a 3-day fast. And it's going to be a little painful. There's going to be moments of pain. So,
but I also think as somebody who's sort of a ongoing recovering food addict binger, I think leaning into that relationship with food a little bit and exploring that and asking yourself sort of curiosity questions like, what's this about? Like, am I really hungry or am I just like panicking because food's not in front of me and dealing with that? And especially as women, we're highly connected to that. So I do have just like a side question.
Okay.
Do you recommend for those that are intermittent fasting, can they have coffee or black tea during?
This is a great question. Yeah, this is a great question. So here's the formula to decide if you can have anything in your fasting window. So, and the first thing I would say is remember where you want to switch your thinking is to there's a fasting window in my 24-hour period and there's an eating window. Yeah. So that's like the first mental shift is like, am I fasting right now or am I eating right now? Yeah. So in your fasting window, most people lean in on coffee. So the best way to know is you take a blood sugar reading. You can get a little blood sugar and ketone reader off of Amazon. You poke your blood sugar. Let's say it says it's 95. Then you drink your cup of coffee. Then a half an hour later, take another reading, poke your blood again. If it goes up more than 10 points, then it's spiking your blood sugar. It's pulling you out of a fasting window. So it would not work for you.
Okay.
So if it stays the same, or some people realize that it goes down, then it works for you. Okay. Now, what most people, and this is where the bulletproof and the fat adapted, the fat coffee became really popular, is most people realize if they put MCT oil in it, it really keeps their blood sugar the same, or it'll bring it down. Or if they put butter or raw cream or something really fatty in it, it helps them go a little longer, but it doesn't spike their blood sugar.
Yes. But we have to be clear because people don't get that you have broken your fast. Be clear about that, right? But you're still in fat adapted, you're still in ketosis, but you've broken the fast. Is that correct?
Not necessarily. So again, it really depends what you're trying to do. So if you're trying to stimulate autophagy, then and you're trying to get stem cells, some of these things that happen in the longer fast, when we teach people to go after that mechanism of fasting, then we encourage them to bring their coffee load down. Okay. Or just do black coffee. Don't do fat in the coffee.
Okay.
So if
hold on 1 second, guys. Come back. Mindy is just, we've lost her for a second. Yeah, she's going to go out and come back. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. We're going to keep going here. Just hang tight. We've been having some sound issues, but luckily we got through most of the interview with sound. And so we're going to bring her right back on. So some of the things we've been talking about is fasting after 40. One of the biggest things that I just learned from Mindy was the fact that we need to be watching our hormone cycles and not fasting at particular times during the month. That's day 12 and the week before your period. So that was huge. The other thing that she just taught me was that, coffee or black tea, I've always understood that it breaks your fast, but that you will stay in ketosis. But she is just saying that not necessarily. In fact, even bulletproof coffee, sometimes it will keep you in fat adaptation. So I think that is some really, really good information. I'm curious what questions you have. Hillary, I'm not sure what you meant by that. easy to remember, don't fast, 1 to 2 or 2 to 1, a palindrome. I'm not sure what that means. So if you could clarify on that, if that's a question, I would love to pose that to Mindy when she comes back on. So anyway, guys, it looks like she may be having a little trouble returning to the show. I am going to give her just another minute. And should we call her? Let's call her. This is fun. Let's see what she says. Oh, I don't think I have her number. 12 and day 21. There you go. Thank you, Hillary. That makes much more sense. So what Hillary is saying, in order to remember what days to not fast is 1 to 2 or 2 to 1. So it's 12 and 21. I think that's super helpful. Thank you, Hillary. So guys, we were almost near the end, but what I want to tell you is Dr. Mindy has an incredible YouTube channel. You want to go and subscribe to that. It's Dr. Mindy Pelz. Dr. Mindy also has a Facebook group called The Resetters. That is a free group. Hey, Mindy, great to see you. We're going to just wind it up. Mindy, thanks for joining. She has an incredible Facebook group called Resetters. And if you want more attention than that, she has a membership group called the Reset Academy. All of that is available on her website. And so I'm going to put the link. Actually, Mindy, since you're here, will you put the link in the comments to your YouTube channel and to your website so people can get a hold of that of you and get a hold of those programs? And also, you guys should know that Mindy does do private remote coaching. If you are not in the Silicon Valley where she is, that is no problem. You can connect with her. And I'm telling you, I've been following her. I've known her for a long time. I didn't see her online until only just recently in the last year and a half or so. And her following is skyrocketing because she's putting out incredibly well-resourced, scientifically backed, great information. By the way, Mindy, did I say Nobel Peace Prize? Because it wasn't the Nobel Peace Prize. It was the Nobel Prize in Science that circadian rhythm, so day and night cycle, and intermittent fasting got. So a little flub up on my part. Barb asks, for those of us over 60, is there any time we shouldn't fast? Mindy, can you answer that? For those of us over 60, is there any time we shouldn't fast? So we're going to take the conversation into the comments. And you guys, I bet this has stimulated some incredible thoughts about fasting over 40 and intermittent fasting. And I always call it autophagy fasting. Mindy's got really, really great information on how-tos for all of those different kinds of fasting. So do check that out. Mindy, thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry we got cut off a little early, but this is great. And Mindy's going to hang out in the comments for a little bit. I'm going to hang out in the comments for a little bit. And we are going to answer any questions that you guys have. For those of you who have joined live, thank you so much. I so appreciate you being here. If you're watching in replay, lucky you, because this is incredible information. And looking forward to it. Mindy answers, just in case you're wondering, and perhaps you're watching this on YouTube. For women over 60, the beauty is you're postmenopausal, so you can fast anytime. That's great information. Thanks again, Mindy. I will make sure to put links on the YouTube, slurping over to YouTube in the description there. And then also here, we'll have some additional links. She's already put her YouTube channel down there, so check that out. Do head over there and subscribe. Guys, I will see you next week. I have such an incredible list of guests coming up. So do come back here every Friday at noon PST. I have an amazing woman, Mary Brown, coming to talk to us about cannabis, CBD, and THC for women over 40. And I hope you will join me with that. That is not next week. It's the week after. Next week, you just have me. So do come anyway, because I like it when people come and visit. Have a great weekend, you guys. Love to you all so much. I so appreciate your support, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye.